Hi, I'm Dr. Danielle Cordero, and I'm an associate professor of English, and I also direct the DWalk studio here at Mount Union. And I just wanted to start today's lecture by thanking you for taking the time to take the questionnaire that we sent out to you in mid-September. In the questionnaire, we asked you about your thoughts about the difficulty of writing and speaking assignments that you've gotten so far in college, about your confidence level in tackling those assignments, and finally about your strategies for dealing with communication assignments kind of in a general way. The DWalk Studio and academic support took your responses and used them to design this lecture and the guided discussion that's going to follow. So thank you again for your time and for your honesty in filling out that questionnaire. Often, students are given advice on how to succeed in school, and the advice can sound like moralizing or unasked for guidance on how to be a good person. It can seem a little bit like people are asking you to sacrifice parts of yourself in order to succeed. And it can also seem like bad advice, especially if you've done okay in the past doing what you've always done. After all, you made it to college on the skills and strategies you already have, so why bother changing? In this lecture, I'm going to share some local and international research that demonstrates why you should consider changing your approach to writing and speaking assignments specifically. My goal is not to try and change who you are, but to help you see that at least some of this advice isn't just the moralizing of parents and teachers. It actually reflects what researchers who study the acquisition of writing and speaking skills know about how that works. I'm also going to tell you about some research that shows that acquiring writing and speaking skills can impact your employability after graduation. First, let's talk about the results of the questionnaire that you filled out in September. It looks like most respondents reported fairly high grades on writing and speaking assignments in the past. Most respondents thought that the assignments they've received so far at Mount Union were very easy, easy, or neither easy nor difficult. Most respondents also felt that they put in about the right amount of time and effort on writing and speaking assignments to get the grades that they desired. Finally, most respondents said they were either very confident or somewhat confident in their ability to complete writing and speaking assignments at a high level of quality. While all of this confidence may seem like a good thing, there are some potential downsides to feeling this way all the time. Literacy researchers have long studied how communication skills transfer from one situation to the next. These situations can range from transitioning from high school to college, to trying to transfer the skills you learned in an English class, to writing a lab report in chemistry. The gist of what researchers have learned is that certain core competencies, such as the ones listed here, can transfer from one situation to the next, but only if students recognize critical but sometimes subtle differences inherent in the new context. The transferable skills are general enough that they apply to many communication contexts. The mistake that many students make, however, is thinking that because they've used these skills successfully in the past, that they will be applicable in the same ways in different contexts. If students are overly confident in their abilities, they can tend to underestimate the difference between one context and another, and not work to understand the differences and gain new skills. In one 2007 study conducted by Rates, Riglarsdam, Weiss, and Dom, researchers examined Dutch first-year college students' self-efficacy beliefs, or confidence in their ability to succeed in a task, in this case, with writing. The students were divided into two groups and were asked to learn a genre of writing that was new to them, a literature review. The students in the first group, which served as a control, were given an assignment to write a literature review, and were then asked to perform writing exercises meant to build their skills towards being able to actually write the literature review. Then they wrote the literature review. The students in the second group, or the experimental group, were given the assignment and instead of being asked to complete writing exercises, watched videos where peers acted out learning to write a literature review. They got to see where students often make mistakes and watch them learn how to fix them. They evaluated how they thought the student actors did in their process of writing a literature review. Then they actually wrote a literature review. The results of the study showed that 48% of students in the control group had unrealistically optimistic beliefs about their ability to perform the task of writing a literature review, while only 26% of students in the experimental situation overestimated their abilities. In other words, more students in the experimental group had realistic perceptions of their ability to write a literature review after the experiment. Students in the experimental situation also performed an average of 5% better on the task of writing a literature review than students in the control group. It's theorized that students in the experimental group learned more about what they did and didn't know about writing a literature review by watching peers attempt to write a literature review. Because they knew more about what it took to write a good literature review, they could accurately predict how they would perform. More students in the control group remained ignorant of how their actual skills and abilities measured up to the challenge of writing in a new genre. The students in the experimental condition had more information that led them to understand what was truly new about the new genre they were attempting to write and how their current skills would serve them. So, what can you take from this study and import into your own life? The study shows that it's important to know how what you're being asked to do is different from what you've done before so that you can accurately predict how you might perform. But sometimes the differences between situations is subtle and hard to detect. Starting early can give you a leg up in assessing the differences between what you've been asked to do in the past and what you're being asked to do now. Sometimes the differences are in genre, as in the case we just talked about, but sometimes the difference is in degree, such as more pages or a longer speech than you've done before. Most of us are time optimists rather than time realists. Time optimists believe that they can get everything done in an impossibly short amount of time. I know I'm guilty of this myself sometimes. But the reality is, creating good writing and public speeches just takes time. You need time to assess the assignment, figure out what it is asking you to do, and then organize the rest of the time you have before you turn it in. Understanding your assignment, no matter what it is critical to understanding how much time it will take to complete it. Slowing down and reading your assignments critically is obviously important. Sometimes you might need help decoding your assignments. Two sources of help are your instructor and the DWOC Studio consultants. Consultants are peers, sophomores through seniors, who are specially trained to help you understand your assignments, come up with creative ways of tackling them, and to help you with everything from organizing your writing or speech to polishing a final draft, or practicing in front of an audience. Starting early also gives you time to seek models of what successful examples look like so that you can try to imitate the moves that will mean success. Ask your professor for a model of a previously successful assignment. Some professors are willing to share these models with you, particularly if it's a new genre, like a lab report. Starting earlier also helps you to get feedback on drafts from instructors. Remember those professor office hours? Turns out, they're there for students to use to ask questions and get feedback on projects before they turn them in. But you can only take advantage of early feedback on drafts if you start early enough to have something to actually show your professor. In spite of all these sources of help, many students don't take advantage of them. Like you, they might have come to Mount Union pretty confident or maybe sort of neutral about their ability to succeed with college-level communication tasks. Like you, they might sometimes, or even usually, start a project a day or two before it's due and turn in whatever they come up with. In other words, they are overestimating their ability to complete a high level of quality in a short amount of time. Some are in for a rude awakening at the end of their second year. Every year, Mount Union sophomores prepare a portfolio of writing and public speaking work that they have completed during their first 2 years of school in FYS, humanities, arts, natural science, and social science courses. The portfolios are then evaluated by a group of specially trained faculty and staff. The training, called norming, ensures that the evaluators are all using the same criteria to evaluate the portfolios. This process is in line with national standards of portfolio evaluation, and portfolio evaluation is widely accepted by learning assessment experts as a fairer and more accurate description of students' skills than is demonstrated in standardized tests. With portfolios, the work students choose is from real classes and represents a broad range of communication genres across multiple fields. Students also have multiple opportunities to revise their work before it is submitted. This is unlike standardized tests, which limit the amount of time students can spend on brainstorming, planning, and revising their work. So, how do students actually perform on the walk portfolio? The truth is, many students don't perform as well as they might have hoped. Each year, about 10% of students fail the walk portfolio. How is that possible, you might ask? Are students submitting work that failed to meet instructor expectations in courses? Are instructors not grading students' projects critically enough? Both of these are certainly possibilities in some cases, but there may be other reasons why grades in courses differ from the type of evaluation that the walk reviewers use. The type of evaluation that happens in classes is just different from the way that the walk portfolios are evaluated. For example, many professors grade students on their process and give them credit for writing drafts and for speech practice sessions, as well as for the final product, which can give some students higher grades than they might otherwise receive if they were only graded on their final drafts. The criteria that professors use to evaluate students also likely differs from the rubrics used by the walk reviewers. For instance, in a chemistry course, a large portion of your grade for your lab report is likely going to be determined by whether or not equations represented in the report are correct, as well as whether or not the lab methods and findings were represented in ways that the professor asked for. The walk reviewers, on the other hand, are only concerned with items on the walk rubrics. These rubrics are specifically aimed at assessing core competencies that can apply to writing and speaking across a variety of subjects and disciplines. In other words, they are skills that are more easily transferable from situation to situation, which is why they matter so much. It is entirely possible for a written or oral project to pass a class and, if submitted with no revisions, not pass the walk portfolio. So what does that mean? What it means is that many students are not as proficient in the transferable skills related to writing and speaking as they might think they are, and their grades on individual projects and in courses, including courses in high school, might mislead them into thinking they're more proficient than they really are. This is a problem because, as we discussed earlier, overconfidence in your abilities can lead you to spend less time and effort than you should assessing what you know and don't know when tackling communication assignments. You might be asking yourself, why does any of this matter? If I can do well enough to pass the walk portfolio, shouldn't that be the end of my concerns when it comes to working on writing and speaking? Let's take a look at some of the compelling reasons why the walk portfolio was developed in the first place. The developers of the walk portfolio understood that success in individual courses might mask gaps in students' writing and speaking skills. They wanted a way to measure these competencies to improve the instruction of writing and speaking across the disciplines. They also wanted a way to prove to those outside of Mount Union, such as graduate schools and potential employers, that Mount Union graduates are proficient writers and speakers. That's one of the reasons why succeeding in the walk portfolio is a graduation requirement. The development of the walk portfolio was partially in response to mounting research that demonstrated a gap between the skills recent college graduates had and the skills employers valued most highly. For example, in 2018, the Association of American Colleges and Universities released the findings of a study conducted on their behalf by Hart Research Group. The study involved a survey of 1,000 diverse U.S. employers. The study demonstrated that, quote, executives and hiring managers place the highest importance on the ability to communicate orally, but only 40% of executives and 47% of hiring managers rate recent college graduates as well prepared in this area, end quote. Similarly, the, quote, ability to communicate in writing was rated as only slightly less important among employers, yet only 33% of executives and 45% of hiring managers think that students are prepared in the area of written communication, end quote. And it's not just one piece of research. A host of studies from the past 30 years demonstrate a clear link between long-term career success and the ability to communicate well. Clearly, developing excellent writing and speaking skills and being able to demonstrate them is important to your career success. So while earning a decent grade on your speech in class next week is important, even more important is building skills that transfer from situation to situation, represented by the core competencies evaluated by the walk portfolio, as well as developing the behaviors that allow you to adapt to new situations as they arise. Let's review. Some communication skills can transfer from one situation to the next. However, the research on transfer of skills and communication tells us that it's important not to become so overconfident as a result of past successes that we fail to appreciate the differences new contexts and communication genres bring our way. While many Mount Union students might have been relatively successful with writing and potentially speaking in high school and even in college classes, their grades might not represent their actual proficiency with skills that have the potential to transfer from one context to the next. Being a good communicator may mean that you will be more employable when you graduate, and could mean that you will go further in your career than you would otherwise. I hope I've made a strong case that it's important to develop good strategies for responding to writing and speaking assignments. What can you do right now to make sure you're getting the most out of opportunities to learn to become a better writer and speaker? On the survey that you took earlier this semester, most of you indicated that you wanted to know more about the following potential success strategies. In the guided discussion to follow, you, your peer coach, and the DWAC consultants assigned to your group will listen as you discuss strategies and sources of help for each of the items listed below. The goal is for you to come up with concrete things you can do right now to take charge of your own learning and get the skills you need to succeed in your classes and beyond. In your groups, try to come up with 2 to 3 things you can do for each item that would impact your success. At the conclusion of the discussion, you will personally commit to 2 to 3 of these success strategies and try them over the next several weeks. In mid-November, we will check back with you to see how pursuing the strategies worked out. You and your group will talk about ways you can keep getting stronger as a writer and speaker in the future. Thanks for listening. If you have any questions about this lecture or the DWAC Studio, please contact dwocs@mountunion.edu or just stop by and see me in my office, KIC 110B, in the DWAC Studio.